Nobody expected the FBI to find Bigfoot like this. Not crossing a road, not caught on a blurry trail cam, not disappearing between trees before anyone could get close. This time, Bigfoot was already dead, hanging from a cedar branch deep in a sealed stretch of forest, its massive body turning slowly in the morning fog, long arms dangling, dark matted hair soaked by rain, and feet hanging just high enough above the ravine to make the whole scene feel staged. Even before investigators got close, they could see it was too big to be a man, too human-shaped to be a bear, and far too real to be written off as another internet hoax. But the most disturbing part was not that the FBI found a dead Bigfoot in the woods. It was that this Bigfoot looked like it had been put there on purpose. And when the body finally came down, what agents found hidden beneath it suggested that somebody had already been tracking Bigfoot, studying Bigfoot, and possibly using this dead Bigfoot as bait for something still moving in the forest. Part 1. The FBI call about a Bigfoot. Nathan Vale had spent too many years around recovery scenes to be impressed by first appearances. His work had trained him to distrust panic, rumor, and dramatic assumptions. He had processed enough remote deaths, staged hangings, wilderness recoveries, and misread crime scenes to know that the truth usually became less mysterious the closer a trained person got to it. That habit of skepticism was exactly why the first image from Black Pine Basin unsettled him so quickly. The still frame had been pulled from a federal wildfire observation camera in a protected section of forest in Washington state. It showed a large dark body hanging from a cedar branch above a ravine. The official label attached to the file called it a probable remote homicide scene, but the image carried details that resisted that explanation from the start. The body appeared too large through the shoulders, too long through the torso, and too heavy to have been placed there without serious equipment. Even before the image was enlarged, it suggested something most investigators would never expect to see in an actual federal case file. It suggested a dead Bigfoot. That was exactly why the case should have sounded absurd. Bigfoot belonged to television specials, hunter stories, trail cam debates, and years of blurry footage that never survived careful scrutiny. But Black Pine Basin was not being handled like a joke. The access road had been restricted before sunrise. Local authorities had been kept back. The small federal team assembled for the recovery moved with the kind of quiet preparation normally reserved for scenes that were already understood better than the paperwork suggested. Nathan noticed that preparation immediately. The vehicle carried reinforced load frames, oversized transport materials, and recovery gear built for far more than a standard human body. That did not prove prior knowledge on its own, but it was enough to make him pay closer attention. The team leader, Special Agent Evelyn Ross, offered very little context during the drive. She confirmed only that the scene was being treated as sensitive, remote, and potentially unstable. In Nathan's experience, those words usually meant the official explanation had already started to fray. Black Pine Basin itself did nothing to make the scene feel ordinary. The forest was steep, wet, and close with old cedar and fir. The team entered on foot after leaving the service road at a locked barrier. For the first stretch, the mountain sounded normal. Rain moved through branches. A raven called somewhere above the ridgeline. Water tapped steadily from needles to earth. Then, deeper in, the basin seemed to withdraw from them. The bird noise disappeared. Small ground movement stopped. Even the insect layer faded until the forest felt less quiet than emptied. Nathan noticed another detail then, a metallic smell in the damp air. It was not typical decomposition, not fresh blood, not ordinary wet soil. It had a colder, sharper edge to it, mixed with something faintly chemical. At nearly the same time, the communications technician began reporting abnormal battery drain and intermittent signal failure. Terrain could explain part of that, but not how quickly it seemed to spread across multiple devices once they dropped into the basin itself. The cedar came into view through low fog. From a distance, the thing hanging from the branch still allowed one final moment of denial. It could have been a hoax. It could have been a large animal carcass. It could have been debris shaped by fog into something human-like. But as the team got closer, the proportions stopped cooperating with those explanations. The body was too upright, too broad, too balanced around the human form to be mistaken for a bear or elk. What made the sight so unsettling was not only its size, It was how strongly it resembled every Bigfoot description people had spent decades arguing over. By the time Nathan reached the lower shelf of the ravine, he was no longer trying to decide whether the image had been misleading. He was trying to accept that the FBI appeared to have been sent to recover a dead Bigfoot. Part 2. The Dead Bigfoot, Hanging in Fog. Up close, the body became harder to dismiss and easier to fear. Nathan estimated the height at just under 8 feet from heel to crown. The shoulders were massive, the arms unusually long, and the upper torso carried a density that would have made ordinary lifting difficult, even with a human body half that size. Dark hair covered much of it, but not uniformly. The face, chest, and backs of the hands were thinner-haired, exposing skin beneath. That skin mattered because it looked entirely real. It folded naturally under weight, showed scarring in places, and carried the kind of texture no cheap hoax could maintain under close forensic inspection. The hands disturbed him more than the size. They were huge, but their logic was familiar. Broad palms, thick fingers, flat nails, flexion lines, not paws, not claws, not something conveniently monstrous. They looked like hands built for gripping, carrying, balancing, and manipulating weight. If Nathan ignored the scale for even a second, the anatomy landed too close to human design for comfort. That overlap was one reason the scene felt so wrong. This was not just a dead creature. It looked like a dead Bigfoot built on a pattern human beings were never supposed to see this clearly. The face made the same impression. Heavy brow, flattened nose, wide mouth, large square teeth, deep-set eyes clouded by death. Nothing about it felt theatrical. Nothing about it looked assembled for a prank. The more Nathan studied the body, the less the word Bigfoot sounded ridiculous. It began to feel technical, almost inadequate, as if folklore had accidentally stumbled onto a real category and then spent decades making it impossible for serious people to say out loud. The suspension method changed the case even more sharply. The body was hanging from aircraft-grade braided cable, not rope. The line ran through a pulley arrangement high over the cedar limb. Nathan found no clear signs of anyone climbing the tree in a normal way. No bark damage consistent with spikes, no ladder scarring, no improvised foothold cuts. Whoever had placed the Bigfoot body there had not acted in panic. They had rigged the tree deliberately, and they had done so with hardware appropriate for a very heavy load. At the neck, the evidence became more specific. Hanging deaths leave patterns. Ligature direction, pressure bias, and compression geometry can reveal whether a body died under its own suspended weight or was lifted after death. Nathan noted that the furrow around this Bigfoot's neck ran almost horizontally. It did not climb in the usual way associated with self-suspension. It looked more like post-mortem hoisting than an ordinary hanging. That distinction mattered. It meant the dead Bigfoot had likely been placed in the tree as part of a display. The ground beneath the cedar reinforced that conclusion. There was no obvious struggle pattern at the base, no collapse point, no frantic drag marks. Instead, the duff showed controlled scuffing and shallow arcs consistent with weight swinging under tension. Near the roots, Nathan uncovered a steel anchor point concealed beneath moss and wet debris. It suggested that the scene had been prepared in advance. The tree was not random. The location had been selected and equipped. Then he found the first sign that the dead Bigfoot had been in human hands before this forest scene ever existed. Low on the right side of the neck, partly hidden by wet hair, was a small puncture surrounded by bruising. It resembled a dart entry. Behind the left ear, Nathan exposed a patch of old scar tissue that looked too clean and regular to be natural. Along the ribs and upper torso, more healed depressions and narrow incision lines appeared beneath breaks in the hair. They suggested previous access, previous restraint, previous handling. In other words, the Bigfoot in the tree had not spent its entire life untouched in wilderness myth. Somebody had already gotten close enough to restrain it, sedate it, or study it. That was where the scene stopped functioning as a bizarre Bigfoot discovery and started becoming something much worse. Nathan looked at the team around him then and felt a second shock, quieter than the first but more dangerous. They were tense but not stunned. Their recovery equipment fit the body too well. Their posture suggested preparation rather than disbelief. Nobody behaved like a person seeing proof of Bigfoot for the first time in human history. They behaved like personnel dealing with a difficult version of a known problem. That impression stayed with Nathan as the lowering operation began. By then, the dead Bigfoot hanging in the fog was no longer the only impossible thing in Black Pine Basin. Part 3. The Bigfoot recovery changed the forest. The body was lowered carefully using a reinforced harness and frame. Nathan stayed close because he wanted one last examination before the change in weight altered the marks. Around both wrists, hidden beneath the hair, he found faint banding scars that appeared older and healed. They resembled repeated restraint damage rather than fresh injury. Across the upper chest and back, he identified additional pale incision lines. They were narrow, deliberate, and inconsistent with ordinary wilderness trauma. Whoever had interacted with this Bigfoot before death had done so systematically. That realization landed just as the basin itself seemed to react. All field radios erupted in sharp static at once. The interference lasted only seconds, but it was strong enough to force one officer to pull off his earpiece. Almost immediately afterward, a low three-note tone became audible somewhere in the basin. Nathan later described it as a sound that seemed to arrive through the ground and the air together. It was not loud, but it carried a measured pattern that felt intentional. The tone repeated as the body shifted lower. At Ross's direction, a drone was launched to survey the tree line. The thermal feed showed the heat signatures of the team, the recently suspended Bigfoot body, and then several tall vertical shapes farther out between the trunks. Those shapes were upright, still, and separated by distance in a way that did not match normal animal movement. Seconds later, the drone glitched, veered, struck branches, and disappeared into the ravine. The effect on the recovery team was immediate. Until then, the dead Bigfoot had dominated the scene. After the drone loss, it became much harder to ignore the possibility that the basin contained more than one unknown presence. It was during this same phase that Nathan noticed exposed metal in the ground directly beneath the body's path. As the dead Bigfoot descended, leaves shifted enough to reveal the circular edge of a steel hatch set flush with the earth. Moss had nearly hidden it, but fresh scrape marks around the seam showed recent use. The location was too precise to dismiss. The body had not merely been hung in a visible place, it had been suspended directly over concealed infrastructure. That discovery changed the meaning of the entire scene. A dead Bigfoot displayed above a hidden hatch was not just evidence, it was arrangement, purpose, message. The tree, the cable, the anchor, the prepared recovery team, the scars on the body, the strange three-note tone, and the motionless thermal shapes in the woods all began to fit a darker possibility. The hanging body might not have been meant only to be found. It might have been meant to draw something back. Nathan's examination of the body continued once it reached the stretcher. Along the spine and back, he found more signs of prior intrusion, again healed rather than fresh. By then, his working conclusion had shifted. Black Pine Basin was no longer the scene of a dead Bigfoot discovered by chance. It looked increasingly like the site of a dead Bigfoot being used in connection with something already operating under that forest. Then the three-note tone sounded again. This time it seemed to come from below the hatch. Part 4. The hidden Bigfoot site below the tree. Opening the hatch required significant force. Cold air rose first, carrying damp concrete, machine oil, mineral water, and the stale enclosure smell of long-sealed infrastructure. A fixed ladder descended to a small landing carved into basalt. Beyond it ran a corridor lined with conduit, cable brackets, and service fixtures that left no doubt the space had been engineered. The chamber below did not look like a forgotten shelter. It looked like a hidden field site that had been abandoned in layers and reused in between. Dust covered dead monitors and obsolete workstations, but some surfaces had been disturbed recently. One console carried clear finger tracks through the dust. A chair had been knocked over. A broken mug sat near a table as if somebody had left fast rather than left long ago. The stenciled label on the wall narrowed the site's function immediately. Bioacoustic Field Unit B12. That detail mattered because it framed the hidden chamber not as storage or emergency infrastructure, but as a place designed around sound, monitoring, and response. Maps on the wall showed Black Pine Basin and surrounding ridges with hand-marked routes, circles, and observation sectors extending beyond public access boundaries. Another board held thermal captures, trail images, and low-light photographs of large upright figures at creeks, ridgelines, and perimeter fences. In another context, those images might have been dismissed as unresolved wildlife anomalies. In the context of the dead Bigfoot upstairs, they looked like operational records. Nathan then found a stripped operations binder with most pages removed. One surviving line on the last intact page changed the case again. It referred to a reacquisition attempt, authorized through use of recovered male remains as vertical lure. The meaning was hard to escape. The dead Bigfoot in the cedar had not simply been hidden, it had been displayed as bait. After that, the rest of the chamber became easier to read and harder to tolerate. Cabinets held sedative darts, acoustic emitters, restraint plans, and medical kits. The language in the notes was clinical and detached, but revealing. Phrases such as kin display, tonal sequence, contact window, and response threshold suggested repeated observation of patterned behavior rather than a single extraordinary incident. Whoever operated the site had not just encountered Bigfoot once. They had spent time learning how Bigfoot responded to bodies, sound, and proximity. One damaged video file made the implication stronger. It showed a fenced exterior area at night in heavy rain. At the edge of the floodlit perimeter stood a massive upright figure outside the fence. A second figure approached carrying a body, placed it near the boundary, and withdrew. Human personnel later emerged from the station and wheeled the body inside while the living figure remained in place, watching. The footage suggested that these beings did not behave like simple predators. They appeared to return their dead, recognize places, and remain near human infrastructure under very specific conditions. That meant the station under Black Pine Basin was not built to prove that Bigfoot existed. It was built because somebody already knew Bigfoot existed and wanted to study what happened when contact was forced. At the far end of the chamber, a steel service door stood partly open. Beyond it came the sound of slow water moving against rock. Then the three-note tone was heard again. This time it did not sound electronic. Part 5. The Bigfoot group still used the chamber. Beyond the control room, the corridor narrowed and sloped into a natural cavern where the man-made site had been attached to exposed bedrock. Old rail track ran toward a black underground pool bordered by service platforms and catwalks. The water erased depth so completely that the space seemed larger than the light could measure. Nathan later described it as one of the few places he had entered professionally where scale became unreliable the moment he stepped inside. The three-note pattern sounded once more. Then came an answer from across the water, a measured knock on metal, spaced with the same interval. What the team saw next did not unfold like an attack scene. It unfolded like confirmation. At the far edge of a platform, a large figure stepped partly into view. It was smaller than the dead Bigfoot recovered from the cedar, but only by comparison. Wet hair hung from the shoulders in strands. Pale scars crossed the chest. The head sat slightly forward. The face remained mostly hidden, but the eyes reflected weak ambient light with an ordinary biological realism that made the encounter more disturbing rather than less. This was not a theatrical monster emerging from darkness. It was a real, calm, watchful Bigfoot, standing in a place where human beings had apparently been studying its kind for years. The figure did not charge. It did not posture in an exaggerated way. Instead, it stood beside a row of arranged objects near the rail. Those objects included antlers, stones, broken equipment pieces, a dented flashlight, fragments of federal gear, and a badge darkened by moisture. The arrangement suggested collection, memory, or deliberate signaling. Then the figure picked up the badge and placed it closer to the platform edge. Nathan interpreted that movement as deliberate communication. It implied attention not just to objects, but to human attention itself. The next act made the implication stronger. The figure tapped the rail in the exact same three-note spacing as the lure signal heard in the basin and at the hatch. That detail suggested learning. It suggested that the Bigfoot group using the chamber had not merely been exposed to the site's acoustic methods. They had recognized them, remembered them, and possibly repurposed them. More forms became visible behind the first one. Another stood near the waterline. A third remained deeper in the dark. This was not a lone surviving Bigfoot drawn back by the dead body upstairs. It appeared to be part of a group still using or revisiting the underground chamber. The hanging body over the hatch had likely been positioned to influence that group's behavior. The encounter deteriorated only after one tactical officer fired. The muzzle flash briefly illuminated several more figures across the cavern, including one partly submerged in the black water. What stayed with Nathan afterward was not aggression from the far side, but restraint. None of the Bigfoot figures rushed the team during the retreat. None crossed the catwalks in open attack. They remained where they were, watching. That restraint was one of the hardest details in the case to simplify. If the hidden station, the acoustic tones, and the use of a dead Bigfoot as bait all reflected repeated attempts at forced contact, then the group in the cavern was not behaving like wild animals stumbling into human secrets. They were behaving like participants in a long-running pattern, one in which the humans may have been the more aggressive side. Part 6. The cover story buried the Bigfoot evidence. Containment teams arrived before nightfall. According to Nathan's later account, these units did not resemble ordinary backup for a remote FBI recovery. Their purpose was control, not discovery. The cedar shelf was stripped. The hatch was sealed. The body of the dead Bigfoot was removed in a climate-controlled transport crate. Local authorities were kept at distance. By the following day, the official explanation had already begun narrowing into a set of manageable public phrases. Illegal wildlife operation, abandoned research infrastructure, oversized unidentified primate cadaver, no credible evidence of ongoing threat. Each phrase carried enough plausibility to slow public curiosity without actually explaining anything that had happened in Black Pine Basin. Nathan was instructed to sign revised documentation that removed the most destabilizing details: the old surgical scarring on the Bigfoot body, the apparent dart entry, the repeated restraint marks, the hoisting analysis, the hidden chamber below the tree, the acoustic equipment, and the Bigfoot group in the cavern. The pattern was clear. The aim was not to solve the case more accurately. The aim was to break its continuity so the body, the hidden site, and the living witnesses could no longer be read as one connected event. Ross eventually gave him only one statement that mattered. The program attached to Black Pine Basin was older than either of them. That admission did not reduce the severity of the case. It made it worse. If the operation predated the current personnel, then the FBI had not stumbled accidentally into a dead Bigfoot hanging over a hidden hatch. They had inherited part of a system already built around monitoring, reacquiring, and managing contact. Nathan lost access soon afterward. His clearance was suspended. His reporting chain closed around him. But before that happened, he managed to retain one small damaged audio file copied during the sweep of the underground site. It contained the familiar 3-note signal, background water movement, and one more detail that became crucial after cleanup. Behind the tone were several layered breathing patterns, separated by distance but aligned in patient rhythm. Not one source, multiple sources. That pushed him into independent review. He began comparing old acoustic survey sites, sealed field stations, strange disappearances, unexplained equipment losses, and regional Bigfoot reports that had been dismissed for decades as folklore. Again and again, he found the same clustering: remote forest, compromised communications, hidden or repurposed infrastructure, unusual body placement reports, and a history of sightings treated as too ridiculous to investigate seriously. The longer he studied those overlaps, the less convincing the official categories became. Hoax, misidentification, poacher theatrics, unverified primate remains. Those labels did not solve the Bigfoot evidence. They simply delayed anyone trying to connect it. Eventually, Nathan overlaid the sites he could verify on regional satellite maps. The results suggested corridors rather than isolated points. Not a perfect network in an engineered sense, but a geography of repeated contact zones stretching across states and habitats. That conclusion changed the Black Pine case one final time. The FBI had not just found one dead Bigfoot hanging in one forest. They had found one dead Bigfoot at one doorway in a much larger system of observation and response. The public version of Black Pine Basin never came close to the real question. Officially, it became an unusual recovery involving an unidentified large primate body and abandoned research infrastructure. The cedar shelf was later cleared. The underground access was listed as compromised and sealed. The reports were thinned until the shape of the case could no longer be seen. But one fact remained impossible to bury completely. If the dead Bigfoot hanging over that hatch was being used as bait, then the hidden site was never built simply to prove Bigfoot existed. It was built to draw Bigfoot back, measure what happened next, and keep learning from the contact. And if Black Pine Basin was only one of several places built for that purpose, then the real mystery is no longer whether Bigfoot was ever real. It is how many forests were waiting for Bigfoot to return.